As someone who's raced there, I mean, I took Corey Cruiseman's sprint car class there. My son and I raced sprint cars there for 4 years. It's an awesome place. I mean, the cool air comes in at night, and everything changes. And you haven't lived until you've gotten a dirt clod right in the nuts.
Something to look forward to, yeah. Hey, greetings and exclamations, everybody. It's time once again for another Talking About Cars podcast, where everybody has a car story. That's right. And this time around, I'm Randy Cardoon. Well, I'm always Randy Cardoon, but this time around, I am him again, because frankly, I'm the only one that showed up to audition. So that kind of worked out that way. And this is, of course, my partner in grime, kind of like slime and grime. That's right.
Yep.
Grime. Yeah. Hot Rod Bob back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
Hi there, everybody. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, another week of exciting stuff going on.
You bet.
Now, you may remember, of course, our last interview that we had, our last show. We had the gals from the Rebel Rally. So I looked up how Jovina and Erica are doing before we did this.
Yeah.
I believe they started just a few days ago.
Uh-huh.
And let's hear it. It's obvious that our incredible luck is having a part in this.
Is it?
Out of 6,
yeah,
dead last.
Well, at least they're consistent.
But they're rookies.
But they were expected to be there.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk to them later on after they get back and
That's right.
have recuperated, and we'll have one of the pro drivers with us as well, our friend Elena.
No, I don't know if she's a pro driver. I think her cohort is a pro driver. I think this is the first time Elena has actually done this.
Well, it could be, but yeah, that's
Ilana
probably true.
Ilana,
but she's going to be on the pro team. And who knows where they'll end up, but we can get a different perspective because she's going to be with a pro driver who knows how to negotiate and so forth. And Alana's going to have to be the navigator.
That's right. Well,
or navigator, as my wife says.
Or yes. I don't know that personally, but I'll take your word for it. Absolutely. So that's going to be coming up. And again, we'll be talking about that, I guess, next show, because they'll probably be in by then. By the way, they're Alana 5th out of 6.
Alana's 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she's one ahead of so that'll be a good, because we'll talk and there'll be, not much difference there. Okay.
Well, okay. So there's 3 Ford Broncos in this.
Yeah.
They're finishing so far 1st, 5th, and 6th.
Oh,
so the cars, it's not bad.
The vehicles are doing well. The drivers are doing what they can.
They're doing the rookie thing.
That's
Rookies kind of have that issue. So I completely understand that. By the way, Bob, you're making me look really, really pale on this.
Yeah, I'm fuzzy and I don't know. There's a red tone here in my studio.
Hold on a second. How's this?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Look orange.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, let's do it. Yeah. Well, hold on. No commercial. Do I look a little more orange?
Only on half of you.
Okay, well, that figures. Story of a personal life. All right, now coming up today, we're going to have an interesting episode, because we're not going to be talking about one person in general. We're going to be talking about racetracks. And in Southern California, we're going to be talking about the fact that there are, believe it or not, over 1,200 racetracks in the U.S. And I'm not talking about horse tracks. We're talking about automotive racetracks.
Of course.
79 of them in the state of California, and only about 20 of them here in Southern California. Did you know that, Bob?
I didn't realize there were that many still in Southern California.
Well, and that's the interesting point, because I have the list of the ones in Southern California, and I'm going to guess that a lot of them no longer exist, and some of them are motor tracks, but they're like motocross. I'm assuming they're bike tracks and that kind of thing. And midget stuff going on, and other ones are superstar tracks that you see on TV all the time. So we're going to be talking about that. Joining us will be Darr Hawthorne, who you know.
Yes, I do.
Go
From
way
Nitro
back.
Reports. Yeah, we've been around. We were on Speed Scene Live together. He and Donnie Couch, who used to be the Yeah, the crew chief for Tom McEwen do their Nitro reports, and also would assist with color commentary for Nitro passes at the Hot Rod reunion in the March meet.
Ah, okay. So there, he's going to be here, and also a neighbor of mine. And I hate to say we're bringing out neighbors, but the point is, it's a good neighbor. Harold Osmer. Harold Osmer has is kind of an automotive racing historian. He knows a lot about tracks that were in the area, and he knows about tracks that were in locations that you wouldn't believe, if you are not an automotive aficionado or you follow this a lot, that you would actually think that they put racetracks in. So Harold's going to join us here in a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And then what they all have to do in this coronavirus COVID-19 thing, and how some of them may or may not be doing so great.
Right.
And whether or not a lot of them are going to survive. I think in that instance, that's something we should all look at. So that's going to be coming up here. But just checking, Bob, anything exciting in your neck of the woods? You doing any racing or any driving or any stalling or conking out?
Well, we just came back from a day at Irwindale Drag Strip. That's still going strong. Now, they still can't have spectators, but they've been getting packed houses with racers. And they gave me some insight as to what's going to be happening even when the COVID restrictions are lifted. And it may not be what a lot of people want.
Ah, very interesting. All right, let's get into the show. Bob, would you like to do the honors for us today, please?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talking About Cars with Randy Cartoon.
Dun, da, 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 and they're here, ladies and gentlemen. There you see him, Harold Osmer, talking about tracks that were. And Darr Hawthorne is going to talk about tracks that probably will be were somewhere along the line. That's horrible English, but you get my idea.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys, to the show. Thanks for joining us. And I see you guys, you're wearing the Nitro reports there, Darr.
Well, it's a show that Donnie Couch and I have been doing on local Nitro, and particularly on the NHRA Heritage Series for the last 7 years. And we're really dealing with a very small fan base and small market there because it's what we love.
That's great.
And you and I we did this as part of Speed Scene Live for a while.
Right. That's right.
So that's where it got its start, and that's where Gas and Nitro reports mixed.
Spawned,
yes.
Oh, here we go. Now we're getting into the R-rated stuff. Harold, thanks for joining us. What shirt are you wearing today, buddy?
Turkey Night Grand Prix shirt.
Ooh.
All right.
This year,
Agajanian.
Yeah, Agajanian Productions and whatnot. I've been involved with it for about 20 years. I make the program, and it's one of many events that got canceled this year. It was going to be at Ventura Raceway again, and for the third or fourth year in a row. And of course, that's on the state fairgrounds. So not only do you have the standard COVID drama, whatever it is, but now you got to throw in the state and the county and everybody else. And that's one of the big events. It would have been the 80th running this year.
Wow.
It's the longest running motorsports event in California. And it got canceled like so many others.
Let me get some quick background on you guys before we really start getting into the raceways. And Darr, let me start off with you. How did you get involved with racing, and how long of a passion has it been for you?
My dad took me to the Times Grand Prix in 1961 at Riverside Raceway. And I thought that was pretty cool. Then when NASCAR came, I thought, oh, that's cool. And then when the Hot Rod Magazine drags came, it's like, what are those other things? I'm stuck on drag racing. So from about 63, 64, I went on my first national tour when I was 13 with Wild Bill Shrewsbury and Jack Christman and the Saxon Sons Comets. And the rest is, as Bill Shrewsbury said, whenever he introduces me to somebody, he says, I ruined this kid's life.
That's funny. That's funny. Harold, how long does this go back for you?
This goes back to the mid-1990s. I was a graduate student at Cal State Northridge, interested in urban planning. And so I needed a graduate thesis. And this was right about the same time the California Speedway was being built. And I thought to myself, well, you know, I've been a fan. I went to Ascot a lot and that kind of thing. And I thought, well, there were probably 10 or 15 racetracks in LA. And good practice if I just go find the book about the 10 or 15 racetracks in Los Angeles. Turns out there was no book, and that became my graduate thesis. To summarize real quick here, I looked into, for the thesis part, I looked into where racetracks were in Los Angeles, what's there today, and what effect a racetrack had on future land use. The short answer is none. If you think of a gas station, for instance, you can't just make flat and build a house. There's zoning requirement, all these different things that go into play. So that's what I was looking at. But like I say, the short answer to that question is none. The more fun answer is that more auto racing has taken place in Southern California than any other place in the world. From 1903 up to the current time, 174 different official racetracks just in Southern California, more than any other place in the world. And the 1903 event was at Agricultural Park, which is where the Coliseum is now. And we still have racetracks in the area. If you include Bakersfield, we have Kern County Raceway and Oildale and a couple of drag strips up there, as well as Irwindale Speedway in Paris and Ventura. So there are some active tracks still. But
and the thing I was just going to say is, it just amazes me for some people that don't know, near Gilmore Field, over where Television City is now, there used to be a racetrack there.
Sure, that's it, right at Farmers Market. And when I talked to Hank Hilty over there, he said, yeah, they had to sell because the family was land rich and cash poor, as they say. And so they had to sell. And the racetrack, Gilmore Stadium, was built in 1934. And it was primarily made of wood. So by 1950, it was about time for that thing to need renovations and modernization and everything else. And so they weighed that against, the studios, CBS studios coming in and saying, hey, we'll buy that property and do this for you. And that's how a lot of it went. One other thing real quick, nobody along the way in Southern California ever came along and just said, no more auto racing, that's bad, I'm going to shut down that damn track. Nobody did that, not across the board. So, we can rule that out right now.
Wow.
Although they've tried to limit the amount of racing, as in the case of Pomona.
Oh, sure. Well, there's lots of those type of things that go on. But so far as just, why the tracks went away, typically a racetrack was built on the outskirts of land, outskirts of development, on some marginal piece of property that maybe had seasonal flooding. Carroll Speedway, Ascot Park, those kind of things were like that. Later on, as the flood control channels and things like that came into play, now the property doesn't flood every year. Maybe we could build houses and whatever. So then the lease is up. You make flat with the grandstands. The racers go on their merry way, find another place. And then with drag racing, of course, after World War II, we had all these extraneous airstrips lying about and all these people coming back, all these young men largely with a bunch of cash in their pocket came back and said, hey, I want to go racing. And so the drag strips came into play, the jalopies, the whole bit. It was a very dynamic time.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, Darr, tell us a little bit about, you for the most part are connected, I guess, with the raceways up in Bakersfield, but which raceways did you grow up going to?
Riverside a lot, but for a place where I didn't have to go overnight, primarily Lyons, Irwindale, Ascot, the ones I could drive home to. My mom had always said as I was leaving for the day, just make sure you call me before 10 o'clock so I know you're not in jail. And that's absolutely true. So I had great guidance, but I always kept a couple of quarters in my pocket, and I knew where the payphone was at Lyons.
All right, now, when you're talking about Irwindale, though, you're talking about the original Irwindale.
The real Irwindale.
The real Irwindale, which is the parking lot for Miller Brewery now, correct?
That's correct. And it was, it was like one of those things, as they're going away, you think, oh, man, they can't be going away. No, we'll go next week. And there wasn't another next week. And it was a real tough time, particularly with what we'd had in terms of Fontana, San Fernando Raceway, so many things that you could just, like, you could go to Ascot on Thursday or Friday, go to Irwindale or Lyons on Saturday, and then go to San Fernando on Sunday and see an afternoon of drag racing.
I remember that. In fact, I think the first time I went to a racetrack was San Fernando, and I think it was a guy that worked for my father's Firestone store that took the Firestone Chevy C10 and decided to race it. And I thought, well, this isn't going to be good. And the guy goes, well, why don't you stay in the truck with me? And I was about 12 at the time. And initially I thought that's really great until I got right up there and we're up against this Mustang with slicks and everything else. And I went, I'll wait over here, and just kind of, but those are the kind of racetracks that were out there all the time. We were talking about this, Harold. I think there was even a raceway out in Agora, wasn't there at one point?
There was. One of the first official go-kart tracks was out in Agora. There was also a road course that ran on Tupper Ranch, which is, let's call it the north side of the 101. They only ran there once. It was Walt James and the sprint car guys did that. And Walt told me, he said, that place was a bunch of rocks. He said, nobody really wanted to go back after that.
No.
Also over in Paramount Ranch, there was the road course, and the road course, a lot of that is still there, which is fun. I think it's a state park, and you can still go there and wander around and find parts of that old track.
Absolutely true. Absolutely
look
true.
At the way that track is laid out, and then you look at the way the track at Willow Springs is laid out, it's very similar. I understand that it was coincidental that they turned out that way. I think both of them, they just went out and decided, how can we use as much of this property as possible and create a nice road course here? And so they did. And that was the late 50s.
Well, having seen races out there, there were no guardrails. There was no way to keep anybody separate from spectators from the race cars. But what a magnificent place to see. It was, you might as well go there with a picnic lunch and enjoy the day. And there's some sports car racing too.
Yeah, we took a tour up there a couple of years ago before it burnt down. That's the other problem now. Yeah. All the buildings that were there are now gone because of the fires we had a couple of years ago. But they did show that in the first race, it was a horrific situation. The track was made to be run in one direction, and for some reason they decided to run it in the opposite direction. And now the guardrails that they did have became things that stopped cars when they shouldn't have. And there was a couple of fatalities, I believe, in the first race that was there. And they only lasted for I think it was 2 or 3 seasons.
All right, only 2 or 3 seasons. And they just ran a couple of essentially club events. The other thing that they had was there was a crossover bridge. And anytime there's something like that, that necessarily narrows it down. And most guys, I mean, let's face it, we don't want to have a racing fatality, but everybody else made it through there. And the guys that had problems made it through there multiple times as well. But if the slightest thing goes wrong, all bets are off at that point. And, it was very unfortunate.
Well, that was part of the problem with it running in the opposite direction that it was designed. If they had run it in the direction the track was designed to be run, that would not have been an issue. But the overpass was now at the end of a turn. And that's where the problem's in.
Yeah. Yep, it turned, in a big high-speed turn too, because it's a great big loop across there. But it's still fascinating. You can go out and see it, and that's what happens with a number of the tracks. The road course at Santa Monica was the actual roads. They ran 1909 to 1919, started on Ocean, went down to Wilshire, up Wilshire to the old Soldiers' Home, which is the Veterans Center now, and came back down San Vicente. It was an 8.5-mile course.
Wow.
You can go out and drive around that today. And they did that from 1909 to 1919. That was Barney Oldfield and Ralph De Palma and Terrible Teddy Tetzlaff, all those guys. And so the roads are there. Same thing in Venice. There was another road course in Venice. And, that's part of what makes it interesting. Anytime you drive around Los Angeles, there being so many tracks, anywhere you are, you're usually within about 5 miles of an old racetrack, an old race site. And they go away for a variety of reasons, but they were all over the place. And as you guys mentioned before, there's a wide variety of opportunities for people to race. A lot of different types of racing, motorcycle racing. You guys mentioned Ascot earlier, Ascot Park. That was actually the 4th track called Ascot. But down there in Gardena, you'd run motorcycles one night and sprint cars the next night and dune buggies the night after that and stock cars the night after. They were open, almost throughout the week, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
Friday nights, I'd go over on the short track that they had built for the quads and the go-karts. And I ended up picking up a job doing that, working there on Friday nights. So I worked at Nissan down the street. So it was an easy just drop over, and there I was.
So what did you do there, Bob?
Same thing I do every place else. I talk a lot.
Oh, they actually gave you a microphone.
They gave me a microphone, and I traded off three races. I do 3 races for, I would announce 3 races for rebuilds on my go-kart when I was racing karts.
Very good.
I wonder, you guys, how many of you remember the Los Angeles street races in the early 90s?
Yeah.
In downtown LA. There was one councilwoman who really pulled for it. I can't remember her name, but I think it lasted maybe 2 years. And my fondest memory is standing down near Philippe's and seeing one of the Jim Hall chaparrals make a turn and go up the hill. It was like, oh my God, I forgot how wonderful that big block sounds.
Yeah, I've got a poster from the first one that the Ford sponsored.
Yeah,
it's up in my office.
I remember
excellent show. It was amazing how they could actually pull something like that off. You couldn't do it today with all the homeless down there, but it was a really unique way to put on a race that really brought out different aspects of the city, from the area down around the Coliseum all the way up to downtown and in there.
I remember when I was at Fox 11, I'd cover that when they were having the races in the streets over there in downtown, and you'd get into these camera positions, especially at one of the turns, and here these things would come around a corner, aim directly at you, only for them to pull off at the last minute. And luckily you're behind a barrier, but still that's a thrilling thing to be that close to the race action.
Yeah, and Long Beach is the same thing. Long Beach, it's been able to last for so many years. They've made a lot of concessions, but the city has supported it and realizing that it is a draw for their city.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was something Dusty Brandell worked for city government at the time, and she was also big into racing, of course. And she told me, she said, yeah, she was a big proponent of that. She went down and told them, and it's easy to look at things today and say, well, this was how it's always been and they should do and whatever else. I say, you really got to go back and put it into context. In the late 70s and the early 80s, downtown Long Beach wasn't a very friendly place to be. A lot of the tattoo parlors and raggedy bars and stuff had gone away, and they were just boarded up, and it was just a seedy thing. And so they needed to attract a better class of people, let's call it, just for lack of other terms there. But they knew they needed something to draw people in and make sure that people understood that Long Beach is a vibrant, modern, cosmopolitan, if you will, city. And auto racing saved them. Part of what made it possible there too was that whole part over there by Shoreline Drive and whatever doesn't run through neighborhoods. So they were able to adopt and build and transform that in such a way that they could have it suit their needs without chasing everybody out and doing those kind of things. They didn't have to close a whole lot in order to do that.
That'd be interesting to see, though. What other place might really be helped by a race like that can just take over a city as far as California is concerned? Any suggestions? Any thoughts?
Could they go back to Corona, the big circle?
They raced on the circle there. Yeah, that was
interesting.
That was a good time. 13, 14, and 16, they did that. And it is an absolute circle. The original plan on that was make a wagon wheel type of thing with the city center in the middle, and all the big citrus wagons can go around the outside to keep the dust down for all us nice people in the middle. That didn't work out. The circle doesn't work for that. But Grand Boulevard is still there, so that's another fun one you can go drive on. What happens is there's the misconception that if you hold an auto race and people show up, there's huge sponsorship and everyone's going to make a lot of money and I want mine. And that really isn't how it happens. You know, the reality of that is doesn't play out. You know, you show up on a given day and you see all these people there. Like if you go to Irwindale Speedway, for instance, clearly not this year, but you go there on a demo derby night and whatever else, and they got the places packed full, and you go, man, these guys must be raking it in. Say, well, did you come last Saturday and watch when they had stock cars running and they had, about 1,000 people, decent crowd? But that's what they get, is about 1,000 people, which is okay. But people look at it on those busy days and say, man, these guys, every day, it must be like, it's like this every time I come here. Well, sure. The same if you go to Dodger Stadium on July 4th, you go there, the place is packed. You think, wow, it's always like this. No, it's not.
No.
Randy and I are very familiar with the Night of Destruction in July.
Right.
Especially. I got married on the starting line. And that was the first time that particular event was sold out, because they had publicized the wedding and everything else that was going on. And we had a car show. We had about 50 or 60 hot rods in the center. So a lot of people came out for it. And we got married. My wife and I got married. And then every year we, except for this last year, we do our anniversary on the Night of Destruction for July 4th.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that you're currently seeing with the lack of racetracks around Southern California and the ingenuity of certain people, illegal or not, is the street takeovers and street racing, which has just exploded in Southern California. It's really a very real problem. And I have one of those Yahoo things that sends me the newspaper reports with a couple of keywords, one of them being street racing. And that is growing exponentially every day, 7 days a week. I get 8 to 10 just about street racing in Southern California and Houston and, other places where tracks have just gone away. People are not going to stop racing.
No.
Are you going to talking about that in the sense that street racing as we know it, or street racing like guys who do takeovers of intersections and stuff?
I'm putting them together.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, one of the things Irwindale tried to do, and it's no longer there, but that's because of COVID, is there was what they called the burnout box. And there was a large area that was blocked off so kids could come out very inexpensively and do what they're doing on the street, but do it in a legal, safer fashion. COVID has killed that. So what's going to happen is the kids are going to go on the street, and some of the younger adults will. But we're also losing tracks, and still today. Darr, can you confirm what we're hearing about Fontana and their drag strip?
What I've read in talking to the management down there at Fontana, they have made a presentation to the county, which watches that track like a hawk, for noise and every possible violation they could find. But what their plan is to change the 2-mile oval to a half-mile oval, bring all the grandstands in, sell off the top portion by the railroad tracks, as I have heard, a distribution center for Amazon, which has direct connection then to both freeways, the 210 and the 10 and Cherry Avenue, which is a big wide street now. And if they do that, the track may survive down there. But too, from a couple of years ago when they used to have 2 NASCAR races there, they couldn't support it. And they ended up taking out the large grandstands on each end and turning them into motorhome parking so that you looked like the place was still packed, but they'd actually reduced the capacity by, I think, around 15 or 18,000.
Right, but with this plan too, it does include eliminating the drag strip, does it not?
It's not in the plans. Okay. I can tell you that. I've seen the plans. It is not in the plans. There is definitely room for it. And one of the nice things that could happen if there is a long building there that becomes a distribution center for whoever, it also becomes a sound wall, right, which will help drop some of the sound of the half mile and a potential drag strip. But the bottom line is they're hurting. And they're a track that's owned by NASCAR.
Yeah. Well, Darr, you touched on something there that's key to all of this. You said there's not enough people showing up to support these races. Well, you're not only supporting the races, you're supporting the venue. You're keeping the venue there, whether it's Gilmore Stadium or Irwindale Speedway or Fontana. If the fans don't show up, the ownership really, they owe it to themselves to find something that will make them money. That is the ultimate goal in the game here. And if we as fans choose to not attend the thing, or maybe I'll go next year or whatever it is, or find reasons to not go, that's why these things go away. It's the same things as Bob's Donuts down the street. God, I wish they wouldn't close the place. Well, when's the last time you were there and bought a dozen donuts from Bob?
High school.
Right.
Well, that's why the place closes. So if we don't support it, and we're the guys who are, fans of this stuff, if we don't do it, then, we got nobody to blame but ourselves, really.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things that has come out yesterday when I was talking to Tim Huddleston at Irwindale was the cost of racing is not going down, it's going up, especially with the lack of participation by spectators. So to bear the brunt of this, the entry fees for racers is going to go up. How do you think that's going to affect just attendance by racers? I mean, we've lost many divisions of racing at Irwindale Speedway, for example. Agajanian doesn't do his turkey night at Irwindale, yet he has in the past, and moved it up to Ventura. It's more cost effective. It's also dirt, which is what Ascot was known for.
Turkey night should be on dirt, always.
Yeah. Well, they did it at Paris. They did it at Ventura, and I loved it at Ventura because it's a 5-mile drive.
Right.
But I loved it at Irwindale, too, because I work there. And it was, on asphalt, man, those things are quick. But how do we do that? Because the spectators don't realize they are the reason the racing can continue.
Right. Well, you can go back to 1903 and find somebody who says that guy won that race because he had more money to spend than I did, and that's going to be a kind of a given all the way along the way. One of the problems that we have these days is, call it in the Saugus days, they had the figure eights and the oval track, and you had a ton of Chevelles out there and Camaros and the whole bit.
Monte Carlos.
But we don't have a steady supply of rear-wheel drive cars that'll translate over to stock cars for racing any longer. It used to be that Camaro's been sitting in your cousin's backyard for a number of years, and you finally talked him into it, and we turned it into a race car, and the four of us put it together. We flipped the coin, and Darr lost, so he has to drive, and then that's just the way it goes. And
have you
guys
seen my driving record, by the way?
Guys can have that kind of fun back then. I say, but nowadays, there's all these costs involved. But as we mentioned, also, if you take away racing, racers won't quit. They'll go get a boat. They'll get themselves a Jeep and go off four-wheel, and they'll do other things. The personality of race people is they're just active. They got to do stuff. They got to solve problems. They want to be part of a team. Guy might be a total idiot at work during the week, but he's totally focused and on it when he's checking pressures and stuff, tire pressures at the racetrack for the race team. And it's great. And that's really what it's about.
So who's failing the movement, though? Is it the fact that the manufacturers just aren't making the right cars for racing? What is the problem? Who is it at fault? If you're looking for fault? Go ahead,
I think that what we've lost is the whole idea of a promoter. That you can come in and you can pick up the lease on a piece of land, an existing racetrack. If you don't know how to promote it, if you don't know how to do stripper night, if you don't know how to incorporate car shows, if you don't know how to bring in every aspect that will appeal to virtually anybody that drives, you're not a good promoter. And I know I promote a regional Nitro Funny Car series in Tucson, Boise, Spokane, and Seattle. And it killed us this year, but I know that I've got to go in and work 3 weeks before any event, go on stupid television shows and talk with the weather girl at noon and tell her what a wonderful thing this is. And come on, I got 5 tickets here I'm giving out. I mean, you've got to do everything that a Bill Donor and JC Agajanian and all those guys, they had a sales and promotional gene that a lot of people don't have today.
And stripper night, it just doesn't go over like it used to, right?
I'm still trying to pull that one off.
Literally? Wait a minute here.
Hello.
That Ascot were from Texas Lucy's.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Well, JC was still alive then, so
Yeah.
But even Huddleston over at Irwindale, the racing people like the super late models and the late models and the actual race car stuff. but it's the circus that sells.
Yeah.
And you can come out and have the regular racing thing. It goes on and it's great. We all love it. But the circus is what's going to pack them in there. And so what Tim has done there is he runs the late models. He'll have them run a race so that all those people who came to see the circus also get exposed to some racing and say, hey, this is what goes on here every Saturday night. You should come out and watch this just on a regular Saturday. He said, and then when the race is over, then they have the big demo derby and the whole big show. So that's one way of helping to promote your product. And it goes from there. So far as, what to do with costs, it's hard to know. There's, as we say, there's not a lot of rear wheel drive cars out there being manufactured today that'll translate into becoming a race car. So you have to build a race car from scratch, essentially. Or you figure out a way to do front wheel drive type things.
Which he's doing with the Enduros and such. And that's another point. The people that are growing up now cannot relate to a rear wheel drive car because in many cases, that's not what they grew up watching. They're Hondas, they're Toyotas and so forth. Then the trucks. And that's what they want to see because that's what they can relate to. And Huddleston's doing that with the Enduro, with the skid plate cars. Those are cars that are attracting attention, not because they're race fans, but people want to see the excitement, the fun, the smash them and the crash them. That's what they want to see. And that's why those Nights of Destruction, which started out as a once-a-year event, became almost an every other month event.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's really fun with that is the guys with these front-wheel drive cars, they're every bit as serious a car guy as anybody who's ever been a car guy. And their cars go plenty fast and whatnot. So as soon as somebody figures out the best way to take those cars and have them compete in some sort of continuing series through a season, and that guy's going to score big. It's also fun to note that another one of the, call it circus shows that really attracts at Irwindale is the drifting shows. Yeah. And those cars are all rear-wheel drive.
Those are.
Which is kind of an odd way to think about, wait a minute, the guys that are coming in are all rear-wheel drive with that, but that's a heck of a show too.
That's Darr Hawthorne. That's, of course, my good friend Harold from down the street. Yeah, that's right. He is joining us here on our show talking about cars. All right, I've got the roll call here of the tracks according to a website about where all these tracks are in Southern California. And you guys give me a little feedback as to where do you think, are they going to survive? Are they not going to survive with COVID and everything else? Let me start at the bottom. Del Mar, they have a dual oval there. Is that still there?
I think they were just running motorcycle races there last time I checked.
Yeah, that could be.
Flat track. I think that's not. I mean, they run awesome car shows down there for good guys.
Yeah.
I remember going to IMSA races there.
Yeah.
Well, and the one-off events, the specialty events for like the motorcycles and whatnot like that, flat track, those kind of things will probably still survive. They do require some promotion and whatnot, but it's not a regular weekly show, so you can do it as a specialty event.
There's Willow Springs, who we see more as a place for a lot of the Motor Trend TV shows to do test drives on stuff. But I mean, that's the most of the time we see that. But Willow Springs, what do you think about its future?
Well, it's pretty busy as a club track regardless.
It really is.
Yeah.
And since it's privately owned, they can do a little bit more there. They have much more leeway so far as restrictions on what you can and can't do.
And they're still out in the boonies.
Yeah, and they're out in the boonies, but racers will go race.
How about Ventura Raceway? What do you think?
What I've heard from Jim Naylor and some of the other people down there is that one of the reasons that there will be a track there for a while is that it is on land that is granted to the city of Ventura. And one of the provisions is that it has a racetrack there. And if that happens, I have a feeling it would, the family that would then own the rights would be thrilled to put condos all along in there and, beachfront condos. But I mean, as someone who's raced there, I mean, I took Corey Cruiseman's sprint car class there. My son and I raced sprint cars there for 4 years. It's an awesome place. I mean, the cool air comes in at night, and everything changes. And you haven't lived until you've gotten a dirt clod right in the nuts.
Something to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saugus Speedway. That's gone, right?
Long gone, 1995, that one.
Okay. Santa Maria Speedway, way up there in Napomo.
There is a new 8th mile that has been granted up there. There's a new 8th mile with the possible expansion to a 1/4 mile that a guy by the name of Foster has been working on for the last 12 years. And apparently he's gotten a go-ahead on some land from one of the farmers who was willing to give up a couple $1 million worth of his grazing land. And I understand it's moving along. And then Santa Maria, the dirt track there, the Speedway is still, there. I drove by there 4 weeks ago, and there were cars out there on the track on a Saturday night. No spectators.
Are you guys familiar with, let's see, that's a motocross speedway, never mind. Lucas Oil I-10 Speedway near Blythe, beautiful downtown Blythe. Have you heard of that?
Yes. I've never been there. I haven't been there, but going down to, through there to Arizona, I've seen signs for it. I've never been there.
Yeah, never been there. It is a bit far out, but
yeah,
racers can still go race as long as they got a place.
Well, yeah. Bob, you mentioned Paris too. Paris, Perris Raceway out there. What's up with that you're aware of, or any of you guys?
Well, they're racing every weekend, aren't they?
Yeah,
for the most part.
And they're on county land too, which is wonderful.
Okay.
Plus, they've got the sprint car class there as well going on a regular basis with I forget who the lead instructor is, but I know Donnie took the class.
It is a beautiful, extremely fast track.
There is a place out in Apple Valley called Grange Motor Circuit. Is that paved road course? Ring a bell?
No, not with me.
Okay. By the way, if you're with this track, feel free to email us, talkingaboutcars@gmail. We'll give everybody an update as to what's going on with that. I'm going to skip most of your motocross stuff. Because even Glen Helen out in San Bernardino, that's more dirt motocross. Costa Mesa has a motorcycle track out there. What about Buttonwillow?
It's a nice track.
That's SCCA owned.
But as I recall, there weren't any grandstands there. Is that right, Bob? Last time I was there were no grandstands.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's basically a club track. It's SCCA's personal track, and Warren Smith, who used to be with NHRA, originally managed it when he left Bakersfield. Sweet drag strip.
Yeah, and it's built on marginal land anyway, so there's not a whole lot you're going to do with the place. So that I think Buttonwillow will be there for a long time.
Yeah, and of course it's out there too. It's not exactly on any encroaching land.
Yeah.
What about Baker?
It's at the corner of godforsaken land and the Interstate 5.
But it's also a different attitude up there. Bakersfield does support their racetracks.
Very much so.
I mean, I used to go to the Oildale. That place was packed on a Saturday night. That was an event. People dressed up just to go there and get clotted with dirt and mud.
There are homes all around it.
Yeah, which there weren't when I was going out there, but I can remember EPA coming by and watching and checking dust for how much pollution there was from dust in the air, and we'd have to water that track down quite a bit.
I had talked to Spud Simpkins years ago, and he told me that when he took over management at Oildale, he looked around and he saw the only people nearby was a trailer park just to the north of him. Yep. So he went over there and he talked to the trailer park guys and he said, "Hey, what can we do to be better neighbors?" And they ran down a list. They said, well, you can stop having your guys racing until 3 o'clock in the morning. You can stop racing in the parking lot, kicking up all the dust after the event. You can do this and this and this. He said, okay. So he agreed. He inserted a voluntary curfew on the racing. They would water the parking lot. He did all these different things. And in return from the trailer park, they had him sign off a thing that said, hey, we're not going to complain about the noise from the racetrack. So long as they behave themselves, we'll all get along. And then the city council up there was able to take that, and anytime there was new development, they went straight to the developers and they said, hey guys, you guys, got to recognize there's a noise source nearby. You can't move in and then complain. And it was a very forward thinking part on Oildale's concern. And that's why a lot of the houses around there, they just live with the sound because you pretty much have to, because it was built in from the 1950s. And that was some good thinking on their part.
Yeah,
and
it
so
was
long
because
as we behave, be good neighbors. We all want to get along. We just want to have our fun and not have to worry about you chasing us out.
yeah, because Pomona basically took the opposite stance, and they no longer have road racing. The drag strip is limited as to what it could run. They challenged rather than try and work with the community.
Well, they also pay off the city of Laverne.
Yeah. A little bit about it, yeah.
Yeah,
Not enough,
maybe a
though.
little.
Yeah, not enough, though, because they're down to what is it, 15 days a year of 13 days of racing that they can have there. And that was a viable road course.
It was an awesome road course coming up underneath the tunnel there and making that left-hander.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the Times Grand Prix started.
All right, so what about Irwindale? Because Irwindale certainly has had its pluses and minuses. It's had some issues. It's already changed hands a time or two. Bob, you worked there for a while. You may again. What are you guys hearing about Irwindale?
Huddleston's trying to keep it alive, but he's the leaseholder. He's not the property owner.
It's owned by two Chinese nationals who have overpriced the resale of it a number of times. And I think they're just taking anything they can get right now. There were originally 3 Chinese gentlemen who bought it, thinking they were going to turn it into a huge distribution center, not realizing what was underneath it was god-awful chemicals, tires, parts of the earthquake from Northridge, and not really anything that could be developed. If you take a look at the grandstand for the circle track, you'll notice that it is a floater, and it varies depending on the water content of where the grandstand sits within a couple of inches. If you look at the corners, so
I never noticed that.
For them to turn it into something else, I don't think that's very viable. And the last time I heard, the price tag was $26 million for that little crappy piece of land.
And that's reduced from what they originally paid.
Yeah, it is. That is reduced. Yeah.
Yeah, they paid
fire sale.
Yeah, fire sale. They paid over 40 million for that. And the guys at the trash company just walked away and go, yeah.
I don't know where Harold went. Where did Harold go? He was here a minute ago.
He lost interest.
We lost it. Yeah, I guess we were too boring on him this time. So anyway,
well, can I mention an operating track that usually slips through the viewfinder?
Sure, go ahead.
Is Industry Hills and Kelly Inman running Speedway motorcycles up there. That is an awesome place. 3 bars, tacos. I mean, it's usually very well attended and in a really good bike count, and a very, very entertaining show. And it's over and done in 3 hours on a Wednesday night.
Now they have lost their announcer.
Yes, they have.
Sadly enough, and he was also our announcer at Irwindale.
Yeah.
But Bruce passed away, succumbed to his many illnesses.
He was a trooper too.
Yeah. Hall of Fame at Long Beach for being the announcer there from almost its inception.
That's unfortunate. So it's interesting to see. We still have, though, among the tracks, certainly fans who want to come out from time to time. The big question is, with all this COVID thing, as we wrap it up here, what's going to get people, how long is this COVID thing going to keep everybody away?
November 4th.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I think
you've been watching a little too much Fox News, I think.
Unfortunately, I watched them all. As I say to my son, you got to know what the enemy is thinking. But one of the things, and I very much applaud Blake Bowser at Auto Club Famoso Raceway, is that he has not stopped racing. He's not allowed by Kern County regulations to bring in spectators. Right. But if you've got a race car and then you've got 9 friends that want to come in with you, you buy another entry for another car and you guys can come on in. And I think that he's come up with some innovative ways. He's still running Summit Series events. He's still, I think, running a Super Chevy event. There's a lot of things that are going on there almost every weekend. So he's surviving, and thank God he had the opportunity to run the Good Vibrations March meet last March, or I don't know what he would have done.
No, yeah, because that's a big money draw for him. That's probably, besides the Hot Rod reunion. Yeah, besides the Hot Rod reunion, that's the two biggest events that are there all year. Now, Irwindale's doing pretty much the same thing in that they're holding weekly events as well, drag strip anyway. The Oval they're doing pay-per-view, I believe, to try and get people to watch that, but it's not doing it. The drag strip has always carried that place for the most part.
Pay-per-view is expensive, and you've got to get, X number, 9,000, 10,000 people will actually step up and pay for it in order for pay-per-view to even be considered. I know that's one of the reasons Blake Bowser stopped doing it. It was costing him $21,000 to do 4 days of the March meet, and he was bringing in around 11.
All right, he's back now. Harold, of course, back in time just to tell us where we could find your stuff, to find out more about where all those tracks were in Southern California. Harold, you have books, you have videos. Where can they get them?
HOpublishing.com. Harold Osmer Publishing, go figure.
Amazing.
You can take a look there. I really don't keep up on it too much anymore. I do the Turkey Night program every year for Agajanians and those guys. But, we just do what we do. We just keep the passion going. And I'm interested in it. I still am. But part of what happened with me was in the early days of internet forums and stuff, it was great. I could contact you guys all around the country, and we could share photos, pictures, information, and whatnot, right up to the point to where some guy scans a page out of my book, uses the text from my book to explain it, and then wants to argue with me as if he's the expert. And so I don't participate in a lot of that stuff, as I'm sure you can understand. What you guys are doing now is a vast leap ahead of, what was possible back, in the pre-internet days when I wrote the books, which was the late 90s when I did all of that.
Yeah.
It's not better or worse. It's just how it is. And you guys are doing great. So
thank you.
You guys, you'll be able to find it through you, I'm sure.
All right, well, get a hold of us, and we'll pass you on to Harold, and we'll take it from there. Darr, what do you got? Is your show still going, and where do we find it?
Yeah, we do it once a month. It's nitroreports.com. It's also on Facebook, Nitro Reports page. In June, we had 62,000 people, crazed people watch it. They must have been totally shut-ins. And then we're usually around 40,000 people that watch it during the course of the month. We have 5 advertisers, and it's fun to do. And then I also write for bangshift.com, and primarily on nostalgia racing. I hate the word nostalgia, but on modern nitro racing that doesn't involve the Camping World or Mellow Yellow sponsorship.
Very good.
Anything I can. And then I promote also the United Nitro Funny Cars series, which we hope to have 6 races next year. 3 at Spokane, 2 at Seattle, and 2 at Tucson. Does that add up? That might add up. But anyway, we put on local nitro races with the heritage type cars from the NHRA series.
Very good. And Bob, where are you going to be?
We talked about it earlier on during our intro.
That's
We're hoping to be at the Fall Fling for Chrysler Performance West.
That's right.
At Irwindale. And for those of you who know me, I'm the guy behind the curtain at Irwindale on the drag strip side.
And he also announces. And he also announces.
Too, yeah. And Nitro Revival will be back in November. And we're hoping that's going to be a big turnout. We've got a lot of nitro cars entered, all the nostalgia cars. They're not going to be running, but they're going to be operating and cackling and making a lot of noise. But we will have stock, super stock, and or they actually call it AFX for these guys.
All right.
So we'll be running some of those races as well.
All right. Well, of course, I'll be back here with the rest of the ne'er-do-wells on this show. Oh, I'm sorry, not our guest. That's you, Bob. Sorry.
Yes, I know.
And that'll be coming up here next week. So join us on radio.com. Also join us 2 weeks after we air this on radio.com, because then this show will be on our Two Tired Guys Productions YouTube channel. So you can see what these guys look like and talk like in person right there over his shoulder. Don't forget as well, let's see, I mentioned the Watch a Video podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us. That always helps. Follow us on social media. And become a Two Tired Guys patron on Patreon. Until next time, I'm Randy. That's Bob. That's, let's see, where are we here? That's Darr. And of course, that's Harold. As we were having fun talking about cars. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.
Take care, people.